Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Coast to Coast Sports Channel. We got power rankings for you this week. A little late, but let's jump right into it because it's a very entertaining week of football come Sunday. First, we got start prepping for the draft. We got the Panthers, we got the Patriots, the Browns, and the Titans rounding off our first tier, 39 through 29. Levi, you disagree with anything here?
Not really, Drew. I mean, these teams are not good. We'll see how the Browns and Patriots. I mean, winnable games for them. Patriots against the Jags in London. I'm interested to watch that game, see how Drake May plays against a pretty bad Jaguars defense. Maybe there's something there. And then with the Browns, they have owned Joe Burrow. Their defense clearly knows how to play him, but when your quarterback is Deshaun Watson, it's going to be pretty hard to overcome that. What I've been hearing is that the coaches might actually think Jameis is better, but they just don't care. They want to get a good draft pick. They know they're out of it. But yeah, these
Interesting.
these teams aren't any good. Panthers
Well,
need
and
to
now
draft a
Amari Cooper's
quarterback.
gone.
Titans, with Will Levis. I mean, they should probably also draft a quarterback. Let's be honest. Will Levis looks like a bust, and I hate calling a guy a bust after like 8 starts, but it's tough to watch
Yeah,
him
it's
play.
tough. He has all of the natural talent, but you need as much talent up here as down there for the quarterback position. And Will Levis sometimes just makes too
Yeah.
much erratic plays. Let's go into our next one,
He does have
which
those
is
Mayo commercials though.
oh, that's true. It's true. We got more than one problem. Tier 8.
Okay.
We got Raiders, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Giants, 28 through 24. Look, these five teams, are they bad? Yes. But are they quite significantly better than the tier before? I would say so. But for every team, there is not just one problem. There's not just a quarterback away. They're not just a defense away. They're not just another weapon away. They have multiple issues. The Raiders, obviously, Gardner Minshew, was not being able to get it done. He got benched. They don't have enough talent on that team. The Dolphins, you really have seen Tua. He is such an important factor these last few weeks. But now you start to see, okay, it's not just Tua. Their defense also not great. So I don't think Tua coming back is going to necessarily fix that team. The Jaguars, is Trevor Lawrence a problem? I would say no, but is their coaching staff a problem? Yes. Is they not have enough weapons a problem? Yes, because Trevor Lawrence isn't enough talented to be able to get the job done with the receiver core he has right now. Then you got the Saints, a team that started out really, really good. And then since then, Derek Carr has fallen back to the player that we all thought he would be. Um, you know, again, not just one problem though. Their defense also sucks. And then the Giants. I've been pleasantly surprised with the Giants the last few weeks, Levi. I don't know if you share my sentiment. That's why I have them at the top of this tier. But once again, more than just one problem. I don't like Dable, and I still think Daniel Jones is a problem. I know he's been playing better, but if I'm the Giants, this is Jones's last year.
Yeah. There's a few disagreements, but for the most part, I agree with all where the teams are. I don't agree that Brian Dable's a problem. I think he has made the most out of Daniel Jones. And I think with Malik Neighbors, they are dangerous. I'm actually interested to see they play Philadelphia. If they have the answers to stopping Saquon, which maybe they do because he used to be on the Giants, they could win that game and they could really start to make some noise. But until they do, they have to beat more than a couple teams, especially when one of those wins was who was it? They beat, I mean, the Seahawks, and before that, I think they beat one of those 1-3 teams. So it's hard for me to
I don't
really like
remember.
the Giants. Jaguars is tough. I mean, yeah, you talked about not having weapons. And it's funny because before the season, everyone's like, oh man, the Jaguars have great weapons. Like, who do they really have? They have Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, two
Yeah.
number two receivers. They have two number twos. And
Yeah. Christian Kirk, Gabe
obviously,
Davis,
you
those are the
want,
guys.
yeah, you
Good,
want
good.
Trevor to be able to elevate them, but clearly he can't.
No, exactly. Those are the guys that are like fringe flex plays for your fantasy
Yeah,
teams the last few years. Like, are those the guys that are going to get the job done? For Patrick
yep,
Mahomes, I'm sure they
yeah,
could. But for Trevor Lawrence, for Geno Smith, for 90% of the NFL, it's not going to get it done. For
no,
Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to get it
no,
done. And you see Rodgers having to get like Devontae Adams. because he also needs an elite wide receiver. But let's go into the next tier, tier 7. Oh, goodness. We got pedal till the metal here on out, 23, 22. Kind of a short little tier here between the
Yeah.
Colts and the Broncos. But look, this is not an indictment on these two teams. It really isn't. If anything, this is a compliment to these two teams, in my opinion, because I think these two teams aren't great, but I'm putting them here because what I've seen, they are not entirely out of the playoffs. If they put the pedal to the metal here on out, and I mean here on out, every game, they make it competitive. That now, I'm not saying they need to win every game. Obviously, they don't, but they need to come and play every game. And I don't care if it's against the Chiefs. I don't care if it's against the Titans. They need to go out there and they need to try and win every single game. And if they do that, and you tell me the Colts or the Broncos snuck into the playoffs, I would say, yeah, that's a feasible possibility. I could maybe see that happening.
Yeah, so the Broncos last night they dominated the Saints, and granted it was Spencer Rattler, but maybe he has some talent, but maybe probably not after watching that. And the Colts they have a matchup with Tyler Huntley and the Dolphins, so they are most likely also going to be 4-3. I think these two teams deserve a little more respect, not that much more. The teams that I haven't seen yet, Arizona and the Jets and I would put these two teams ahead of them probably, and I'd probably also have them on the same level as the Seahawks at 3-3. So I think you might be a little too low. Drew, you missed your opportunity to make a horse pun though. I mean, you got the Colts and the
Oh,
Broncos,
that's
man, in the
true.
same
That's
tier.
true.
But yeah, I mean, look, Denver and the Colts right now, that's kind of your 7 seed, right? If you're thinking the Chargers probably and the Steelers as wildcard teams, this is kind of the battle for the number 7 seed. Maybe the Bengals can get back in that race. I think they will, but right now they have a leg up on the Bengals. It's tough for the Colts because I think if they started Joe Flacco, they're probably a playoff team. But
It's crazy
I
because
think you
Anthony
have to
Richardson.
go back to Richardson just for the future. You have to play Richardson.
Do you remember that week 1 where he made that crazy 60-yard throw? That's all anyone could talk about. And then
Yeah,
since then, obviously,
he's just
yeah,
not that
just
good.
not great, been hurt. So
But he's
yeah,
only made 8 starts, so you can't judge him after 8 starts and bench him. Like
well,
I
you're
said,
judging Will
Will
Levis
Levis.
after 8
Yeah,
starts.
but Richardson was a first round pick, and Richardson has a
Was
lot more physical
Levis should have
talent.
been a first round pick. Either way, these two teams got to
Yeah.
gallop their way all the way to the
Mm-hmm.
finish line if they need a chance. You
I
like what I
like
did
it.
there, Levi?
Yeah, I
All
like
right,
it.
all right. Talent, sure. Execution, I
Okay.
don't know. I'm not sure. Tier 6, we got the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and then the Jets at 21 through 18. Levi, the Cardinals are a team. I'll start with them because I think the Cardinals are actually pretty talented. I do.
Mhm.
But there just always seems to be something lacking after those first 4 or 5 weeks with Kyler Murray. It's every year. And Call of Duty didn't even come out this year, I don't think. So I don't know what's happening with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. But every year, look, they played the Bills really close week 1. Then they piggyback that game with a good win week 2. But then since kind of week 4, the Cardinals have looked really lackluster. The Cowboys, my goodness, is Jerry Jones needs to step down as GM. It's time. It's time. I think it was time 5 years ago, but it's really time now. I mean, you can't be going on Dallas radio stations and saying, "Yeah, I don't need to talk to you guys." The radio host, I can fire you if I want to, and he's turning into a child.
Not a good
He can't
look.
do that. He can't. There's so many things wrong with the Cowboys right now. It's a problem. It's a
Yeah.
problem. The Seahawks. The Seahawks are an interesting one for me because they have a lot of talent. But once again, something I didn't think was going to be a problem this year was execution because I really, really like Mike McDonald, what he does. But right now, defensively, you got to think what is happening from the execution standpoint. Because this is now, back-to-back weeks where you look and say, well, honestly, 3 weeks straight where you look and say, didn't really look like the Seahawks were ready to win this game. Very interesting. We'll have to see if Mike McDonald and the Seahawks can kind of bounce back. I think I got the Jets at 18. And look, I would probably have the Jets below the Seahawks. But I'm gonna flip flop them just because I do think the Devonte Adam trade does make him marginally better. Is it good enough to make a run in the playoffs? No, it's not. The Jets aren't a good football team right now because what's the one thing everyone thought the Jets were going to be elite at coming into the year?
Defense.
The
It
defense.
hasn't been there.
And not only has it not been there,
And you
Levi, it's
fired your
been
defensive coach.
you you fired your defensive coach. And now your defense is worse.
Yeah.
So what do you expect to happen? Look, Aaron Rodgers blaming Mike Williams. I mean, it's classic Aaron Rodgers. Who is
Eh,
he gonna blame next? Who is he gonna
Well,
blame? There's no one
he
else to
probably should
blame.
blame the front office for not signing Hassan Riddick. At this,
But Levi,
it
there's no
sucks that
one
he's
else
holding
to
out,
blame.
but they have to make that deal done.
He's blamed head coach Saul got fired. He blames Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, he's gonna get
Devontae
traded.
Adams is now here. Like, who else are you gonna blame now? The
Yeah.
defense? Like, no, you can't blame the defense as an offensive guy. So I don't know. We'll have to see what
No, I
happens
mean
with in
they
New York.
have to probably if they really want to compete, which they should, because let's be honest. If Aaron's going to make a playoff run with the Jets, I think it's going to be this year. He's not getting any better next year. I mean, if he
Yeah.
plays next year, he's going
Well,
to be
that's another
worse.
thing. Aaron Rodgers is not an elite quarterback anymore.
So if they really want to go all in, they need to do two things. They need to trade for a Pro Bowl level offensive lineman, and
But
B,
who is willing to give up in Pro Bowl level offensive lineman right now?
the Browns maybe,
Maybe.
the Cowboys if things get worse. I mean,
Yeah,
there might
like
be
Jerry
one that
Jones
comes
would do that.
available.
There's no way. Jerry
But they
Jones is not.
also they have to first they have to get a deal done with Hassan Riddick. Your best pass rusher is holding out on you, and you are saying that you're all in, but clearly you're not all in enough to give him what he wants. You have to pay the guy. And I know they don't think he's worth what he's asking for, but at some point he is worth what he's asking for. You have to pay. I remember the Seahawks one year, Cam Chancellor held out on us, and we were terrible defensively the first like month of the season. Then we paid him, and all of a sudden it solved all our problems. Not saying Hassan Reddick can solve all their problems, but sometimes that great player, once he comes back and is energized and paid and ready to go,
Yeah.
it changes the defense.
And
Yeah,
it comes to a point where it's do or die,
it is.
right?
It is
Like,
do or die with them.
so yeah, okay.
And
You
I think
hold
they're
out,
gonna
you pay
lose.
us on Reddick. Then
I don't
what? You
think they
use money
beat
next
the
year for a
Steelers on
useless
Sunday.
team? What?
Sorry, what were you saying about Hassan Reddick?
I was saying if you don't pay the guy, what are you saving money for? Like next year,
Next
it's
year,
only gonna get worse.
next year you don't have Aaron, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. These
Yeah,
four teams, though,
and
all talented, all have execution problems, all have a backdoor chance at the playoffs for sure. But once again, they need to really turn it on
yeah,
here to close out the season. All right, tier five. We got mediocre mayhem
mm,
in the middle here,
yeah,
17 through 12. These are teams that really, Levi, you don't know what's happening. They're all jockeying for position in that middle of the race. We're at the bell lap and they're all trying to kind of make that, last stride forward to get into the top 10 and into the playoffs. But some of these teams aren't going to do that. You got the Eagles at 17. You got the Rams at 16. The Steelers at 15. The Bengals 14. And then Levi, the Bears at 13, which maybe is a little lower than what you would like, but this is a lot higher than I would have initially thought. So shout out to the Bears. And then you got the Falcons at 12. What's your first thoughts to these six teams?
yeah. I like it. I think mediocre mayhem's a good term. Because these teams are not similar in a lot of ways, but I like that you kind of just grouped them together with the term mayhem. That I think that works. Yeah, I mean the Bears.
Thanks, man.
I'm a little bit higher. I had them at 10 last week, and I don't think they gave me any reason to move them down from 10. So I'd probably keep them in like the 10 thing. I mean, none of the teams I had ahead of them lost either. So honestly,
Yeah.
they probably would have stayed at 10 for me. So you have them at what, 13? That's not that. I mean, yeah, a little bit, but I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with it. I still think they're the worst team in their division. They look good. If they were in a different division, I'd probably be higher on them. Like if they
Uh,
were in the South or the West, I think they would be better poised for the playoffs. The problem is you have to play Green Bay twice, Detroit twice, and Minnesota twice.
yeah.
It's tough to say they can make the playoffs. That's a tough schedule. Yeah, Bengals, I think they can make a run. We'll see how they look against the Browns. Steelers, Russell Wilson, man. I think they're gonna beat the Jets, not because of Wilson, just because The Steelers have a good defense, and Aaron Rodgers has been not playing well.
That
So,
might be the most interesting game of the week, Levi,
oh
because we're
yeah,
gonna
that's must-watch television.
yeah, I mean, well, you got Russell Wilson, which obviously us being Seattle guys, I'm rooting for him.
Of
I'm
course, I.
Yeah, and then B, you got Devonta Adams and Aaron Rodgers
Aaron Rodgers.
reunion. The Jets need a win. The Steelers, can Russell Wilson get a win? If they lose, there's going to be a lot of controversy between Justin Fields and him. I don't know. It's gonna be really fun. Levi,
I
one of
think
these
it'll be an
teams I want to
ugly
ask you
game.
about. What?
I think that'll be an ugly game, but I just hope to see a couple deep balls. Like
I think it'll be close though. I
show
think it'll
me
be
some deep
close.
balls. Even if they miss, just let me see Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers throw some deep balls because that's what they're so good at.
Well,
And
but
there's
here's the
not
thing,
many in the
Levi.
league who do it
The Steelers pass rush. They might
really
make
good.
mincemeat of the Jets. They
Yeah,
they really might. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. For the first game of Devonte Adams and Aaron Rodgers, I could definitely see kind of, not the reunion everybody's been waiting on. So
yeah.
we'll have to see. They could still win the game, but the Steelers defense is really good. One team I want to ask you about, Levi, the Rams.
Mm.
Obviously in the NFC West. What do you think about them at 16? And I'll kind of group the Eagles with them too. They're at the bottom of the mediocre mayhem. Obviously, opportunities to move up, but right now they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, the Rams, here's the good news for them. Raiders, who are bad. Then they have a tough one against the Vikings. But then after that, Seattle, who is struggling, Dolphins, Patriots. So they have four of their next five games very winnable. Then the Eagles, who are mediocre, and the
Yeah,
Saints, who are not good. So really, you could say six of their next seven games are very winnable. And I think they are probably going to go 5-2 in their next seven. And I think they still can win that division. That's because part of that is because they're getting Cooper Kupp back and they're going to get Nakua back soon as well. But if they lose to the Raiders, then they're probably out of it at 1-5. So I'm making a very bold claim saying not only do I think they beat the Raiders, who technically have a better record than them, I then think they're going to go on a really good run and put themselves back in playoff contention. But if they lose this weekend, they're out of it. So they have to win. And with the
yeah.
Eagles, it's tough because I thought the Eagles were going to be really good going into the season, but that was before I knew how good Washington would be. I was banking on them picking up 4 free wins against the Commanders and Giants, and the Giants look tough, and the Commanders look really tough.
They
So
probably go 2-2 in those four
yeah,
games.
they
Like,
probably do. So all of a
yeah.
sudden, they seem much more like a mid team than a good team, just based on how the schedule is going to play out. And Jalen hasn't been that impressive. I mean, he didn't. I think he made about two great throws against the Browns, and they were both because of AJ Brown, not because of him.
Yeah.
And I still think Sirianni is in a tough spot as coach. And he was yelling at his own fans the other week. I mean,
What are you doing?
I don't know.
How do you stoop down low enough to even care?
Like it just when you're a head coach making millions of dollars, you have to put that kind of stuff behind you. There's always going to be fans. I mean, can you imagine if Mike Tomlin? There's a lot of Steelers fans who want him gone. Can you imagine if he went out there at the press conferences and started like like going off on the fans? It would be Mayday in Pittsburgh, but he doesn't do that because
Well,
he
he
knows
would have been done 5 years ago if he
because
did
he
that.
knows I'm Mike Tomlin. I've never had a losing season, so I don't care what the F these fans are saying. I'm just going to go out and do my business. Sirianni can say the same thing. I've never had a losing season. I don't care that you think there's problems with my game. We've been in the playoffs 3 straight years with me as head coach, so trust that I know what I'm doing. But
And no
instead,
one is going to
he's making
watch that.
excuses for himself.
No one's going to watch that and be like, "Oh, that's my football coach." Like, no,
No,
not at all.
he's acting like a little baby.
For sure. Tier 4, Levi. Let's move on. Uh, we have 11 through 9 playoff bound. We got the Chargers, the Buccaneers, and the Commanders. I was tempted to put the Bucks ahead of the Commanders,
Well, he did
but
beat
I
them.
do think I do think that there is a better chance that Baker Mayfield declines from here on out, and there's a better chance that Daniels, kind of continues to go on this little rise, this little XY crossing here. So we'll see. We'll see. But right now, I like all three of these teams to make the playoffs. I do. I think what the Chargers are doing over there, I like it. I like the defense. I really do. Kind of bringing over that Michigan football. Um, and kind of not making Herbert throw the ball 40 times a game, mixing in the run game. I do like it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the 2012, 2013, 2014 Seahawks a little bit, which I think is kind of fun. The Buccaneers are kind of the opposite. We're going to give Baker Mayfield the ball. He's been on four different teams, but we don't care. We're going to treat him like he's the best quarterback in the NFL and screw it. Why not? He might be the best quarterback in the NFL. Baker Mayfield is playing with some flair right now. He's got all of the passion. He's got all of the talent in the world right now, and he's got the confidence now. So when you kind of loop all those three things together, Baker Mayfield all of a sudden, not only is he a starting caliber quarterback in in the NFL, he might be an elite quarterback. I don't know. I don't know that might be true though. It might be true. We'll have to see. And then you got the Commanders, and boy, have the Commanders looked good. Against the Ravens, I really liked the Ravens, and I thought they went toe to toe with them. Did they come out on top? No. But if you told me those two teams played in, 10 weeks or whatever it is towards the end of the year, it could definitely flip flop. So I like all three of these teams to make the playoffs. They're all really, really good. Are they elite quite yet? I would verge on no, but still, I like these teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, in Baker Mayfield's last 8 games, he is 8-4, and he is the best quarterback in the NFL in it. Or sorry, not 8 games, past 12 games. So the last six of last year and the first six of this year, 8-4, and his numbers are the best in the league. And the QB index, I live by the QB index.
Yeah, you do.
He's the best quarterback in the league in the past 12 games. Now, I don't know if he keeps that up. If he does, he may be on his way to having a Drew Brees-esque career where he gets hurt, he gets cast aside by the team that drafted him, and then he finds a home in the NFC South. And, I
Not
don't
gonna
know,
play.
man. It looks good, and I kind of want to root for the guy. He makes me want to root for him.
I
Um,
do.
I still think you're a little low on the Chargers, but it's okay. It's not that much.
How can I be low though? What do you want? Who's ahead of them? I mean,
I think they're ahead of these teams just based off of
really?
I trust Harbaugh more as a coach and I trust Herbert more as a quarterback. And I think they also
Do
probably have
you
the
do you
best.
trust Herbert more as a quarterback?
Yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, Baker's close though. Baker's closing in quickly. But I also think that they probably have the best defense of these three. And the Chargers have, you're right, they're kind of becoming the Niners and the Seahawks of the early 2010s, where it's like run the ball, play good defense. Every so often, we're going to ask a Colin Kaepernick or a Russell Wilson or a Justin Herbert to make a play for
Yeah.
us. They've been taking the ball out of Herbert's hands a little bit, but it hasn't been a terrible strategy. So,
I think that 2010 22-10 loss against the Steelers, I believe. I thought they looked really bad a
well,
few weeks
Herbert
ago.
got hurt in that game. So it's hard to really judge him in a game that he left in the third quarter. Of course, the Steelers are going to beat up on any backup quarterback. I mean,
I get it. I get
yeah.
it.
So
All right. Tier 3. Knocking on the door, and here you see the 49ers. You see the Bills, and you see the Packers.
I love the Packers here. You're finally high on the Packers.
Yeah, I do. I kind of finally realized the Packers are a good team. And not only are they good, they're a borderline elite team. Really wanted to put the Bills ahead of them. But from what I've seen, and I know the Bills have a lot of injury concerns right now, they barely beat the Jets, though. And I don't love the Jets. So I do put the Packers at 6. The Niners, they could have been the top of this list. Honestly, to me, all three of these teams are super, super close. All three of these teams are going to make the playoffs. The 49ers, though, Levi, last week you had at some absurd number, 19 or something.
Yeah,
Does
19.
it change after the win against Seattle?
Not
It has
really.
to. A little
Not
bit. It
really.
has to.
I think they're about like 15 or 16 maybe. I don't really believe in this 49ers team.
They're a good team with a lot of talent. Christian McCaffrey is going to come back soon. I mean, the fact that Ayuk has barely seen the ball is a good thing. That means that the offense is working. I, I,
It's working to an extent. Purdy's not playing elite this season. He's had one good game. It was against the
he looked pretty good
Seahawks,
against
and they're
Seattle.
bad.
He
Yeah, but
did.
we have a bad defense, and we
We
have an
don't have a
injured defense.
bad defense.
Not a bad. We have a mid defense with a lot of guys who are hurt, which
The
turns
Seahawks
in.
have a good defense when everyone's healthy and we're not healthy. So we have a mediocre defense, and Purdy looked really good.
Yeah, but that was the only game Purdy's looked really good. They blew a game to the Cardinals that they should have won. They blew a game to the Rams that they should have won, and they
Those are good
lost.
teams.
Well, you have them ranked significantly lower in the
I agree,
rankings.
but so I mean, all of these teams are going to have losses to teams they should have
Sure,
won. I mean,
sure. I mean, let's see. They're gonna play the Chiefs though. Then they're gonna be 3-4 when they lose to the Chiefs. If they beat the Chiefs, I will bring them back to my top 10. But
they could, Levi. The Chiefs have to lose at some point.
well, they could, but the Chiefs are pretty good against the 49ers. So,
It's true. And then you got the Bills kind of in the middle there. Josh Allen, is he going to be able to get it done, Levi? I don't know. I don't know.
well, he doesn't seem like he has to. I mean, he hasn't played well since week 2 and they've won 2 of their last 4 even though he hasn't been playing. I don't know. I
But
mean,
he has to be able to play well to make the Super Bowl.
I mean in the playoffs it's annoying with the Bills cuz you know what's going to happen with them. They're going to make the playoffs, they're going to win the division. They're going to lose in the playoffs because they don't have that playoff X factor. And we've seen, I mean, they've been to the playoffs 5 straight years. They've lost in the playoffs 5 straight years. They're going to do it again. I mean, why would year 6 be any different?
Yeah,
Amari
yeah,
Cooper is
I
not
know.
going to change that.
Good point.
I like the
Good point.
trade, but he's not going to change that.
Yeah. I do like Amari Cooper. It might change a little bit, but I agree. Tier two, Super Bowl possibility. This is the first tier where I think, look, these top five teams. I don't know. I don't know if you have the same top five or not, Levi,
I
but
do.
all five of these teams, I think, can make the Super Bowl. And you see it here. You got the Vikings, the Texans, and the Ravens. Vikings obviously undefeated. Texans love Stroud. Think he's a top three quarterback in the NFL. And then the Ravens. I know you're not as high as the Ravens, Levi, but I think they're right below the Chiefs. Look, they were a toe away from taking it to a 2 point conversion to beat the Chiefs in week one. And since then, I've seen a lot of good things from the Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson's probably the second best quarterback in the NFL. I like their defense. I think what Harbaugh's doing, is really solid as well. Look, all three of these teams, you tell me they make the Super Bowl, I say makes sense.
Yeah. Well, kind of makes sense. I still think if you told me the Vikings made the
No,
Super
because the
Bowl,
NFC isn't that good.
the NFC's pretty good and their division's good. So I
Levi,
agree with the
the
three
Vikings
teams.
could make the Super Bowl.
They could, but I think I would still maybe at this point I'd still maybe do a double take. I
They
say
have to
that
beat the Lions.
I say that I'm about to make this argument. I would actually swap the Vikings with the Ravens. I think these are the same 3 teams that I would have in this tier, but I would move the Vikings to 3 because they did manhandle Houston when they played them. And they beat Houston like 34-6. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's a
I
good
would put
point.
them at 3, and then if you wanted to say Ravens 4, um, I could hear that argument. I would probably put Texans 4, Ravens 5. Doesn't really matter. They're all at the same spot. I think if the Chiefs have lost a game, the Texans and Ravens would be the Vegas favorites because nobody wants to keep betting on the Chiefs, but until they lose, they have to be number 1. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I like the Texans. I like the Ravens a lot. I like the Vikings. Uh, Lamar has been playing out of his mind, and so is CJ. I mean, those 2 quarterbacks are. I think that's the MVP. Somehow Mahomes is still leading the MVP odds. I think the MVP race right now is Stroud versus Lamar, and maybe Mahomes gets back into that, but Mahomes is 6 touchdowns and 6 picks. That's not MVP worthy. CJ
No.
Stroud is doing otherworldly things, and so is
And
Lamar.
throw
I mean,
Baker
Lamar
Mayfield in
wants
there too.
he throw Baker in. Yeah, Baker would be number 3. So the reason I would say Texans 4, Ravens 5 would just be honestly the record. And I do think, when they play each other late in the season, I think that's one of the games I think the Ravens will lose. Because
I'm
I
just saying, if right now, if the Texans play the Vikings despite the loss, and if the Ravens play the Vikings, they would both, in my eyes, be favorites. So that's what I
yeah,
have on that.
they might, but I think you have to respect that win.
I get it. I get it. I see that argument for sure. It's just that was a few weeks
If
ago,
it had been like a if it had been like a 25-20 win, I would put the Texans ahead of them
Yeah.
still. But
Mhm.
34-6 is enough for me to say like they're on the same tier and they beat them. So I don't know. But yeah, it's apples and oranges. Let's show the top tier.
We
Yeah.
got Lions, we got the Chiefs, and tier one, the Lions entered the top tier because we've had the Chiefs as kind of the solo guys at the top for a while now. This is not saying the Chiefs got worse. This is saying the Lions look really good.
They got oh man, I mean, that was a crazy good performance. Without Aiden Hutchinson, I feel bad for them because that probably takes away their best player for the season. I mean, they're saying maybe he could come back for the Super Bowl, but let's not
That would be
let's
crazy.
not get ahead of
They
ourselves.
got that surgery happened the very same night. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But if they beat the Vikings, which I think they will, then there's no way you can disrespect the Lions once they beat the Vikings. Um, but I was a lot more confident that they would beat the Vikings when I thought it was going to be Aiden Hutchinson who is putting pressure on Darnold. The whole thing with Darnold is if you put pressure on him, he will struggle. And the Lions, even without Hutchinson, I think they have the pass rush to
They
do
have
it.
enough. They
But
do.
they should consider a trade. I would I would reach out. I know it's a long shot. I would reach out to the Browns. What do you want from Myles Garrett?
A lot.
And I would reach out to the Jets. If you're not going to pay Hassan Reddick, we will. What do you want for him? And I
Yeah.
would reach out to the Cowboys. You haven't paid Micah
Jerry
Parsons
Jones
yet.
does not have enough self-awareness to give up on this team.
I'd reach out to the Raiders. Max Crosby, what do you want for him? I mean, there are some bad teams with some good pass rushers, and I think the Lions would heavily benefit from picking one of them up. That's what they
Yeah.
should need. They need to be making phone calls.
Yeah, they do because Levi, you say it, they might be one pass rusher away from winning the Super Bowl. I mean, they
And by
might
the
be.
way, in their division, the same thing applies to Caleb. Put pressure on Caleb. He's not the same quarterback.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. Remember a few years ago when we started making this tier list, Lions were just
They were at the
consistently.
bottom.
I know it's crazy how times change, but the Lions, just really credit what they've done over there the last few years. But you got the Lions and the Chiefs 2-1. Levi, I think that'll do it for the this tier list,
Yeah,
power rankings, whatever you want to call it, for the Coast to Coast Sports. You got it next week.
I got it next week. Yeah, I think this was your best tier list yet. I
Ah,
the only
nice.
big disagreement I have, honestly, is the Niners. I still think you're quite a bit higher on them than I am, and I think
Maybe it's last season bias.
If they beat the Chiefs, I'll admit that I was wrong. But
They
I think if they
probably
lose to the
won't, but
Chiefs,
you have. Okay.
you got to start dropping
What
them.
if they lose close?
If they lose close, I will probably raise them.
All right. Okay. Sounds good. All right. This is the Coast to Coast Sports channel. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Go check out the NW Sportscast. We'll try to do a Seahawks pregame or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Post-game show will also be there if you're a Seahawks fan. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Coast to Coast Sports podcast channel. And as always, go Seahawks.